what's up everyone? I'm Ashley and this is Ashley Talks Movies. Welcome to my channel. Disney's long-awaited live-action Mulan has finally been released and it is currently available on Disney Plus as part of a new Premier Access option in which Disney Plus subscribers can pay an additional fee to essentially unlock this film. And as someone who has watched the new Mulan, I will say that this film is visually stunning, and so it's a shame that it's not doing its traditional theatrical release, which it was clearly intended for. So I'll get to more of that a little later in the full review, but before I do, while I have you here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos, and also hit that notification bell so you get notified every time a new video is posted. Okay, so on to the review. Mulan tells the story of a young woman who disguises herself as a man in order to take her father's place in the war. And that essential part of the story is very similar to the animated film from the 1990s that many of you are very familiar with, and in fact are probably a huge fan of. I will say that this movie, this live action movie, although it has some touches that are similar to the animated film, it is in many ways very different from that film. It is not a musical, so characters don't stop and break out into song. There's no Mushu, or talking dragon. In many ways, that's okay. That completely works for this film. This film is geared more towards realism. I mean, there are fantasy elements still very prevalent in this film because, after all, the story of Mulan is a legend. So this film does lend itself to fantasy in many ways. And as I mentioned before, this film is visually stunning. I mean, when I tell you this film is so beautiful, it's watching it, seeing these really grand buildings, these lush forests, mountains, these sweeping landscapes, and just the way the camera moves across it. Cinematography, the visuals are just absolutely breathtaking and beautiful. And that doesn't necessarily make up for some of the areas where this film does lack, and there's a few of them, that prevents it from being a really great film. Niki, Caro, who directed this film, does a really great job in creating what I would consider a very technically well-made film. I mean, just it looks good, it's structured really well, but it does fall short in a few areas. For me, that's most notably in the execution of the story. There are, as I mentioned before, quite a few changes to this story from the animated film, and that's not necessarily a problem. It's just how those changes are sort of executed that, to me, it's a problem that a lot of Disney live-action remakes have, in that they fall short of capturing the magic of the original animated films. And I'm not saying they have to replicate them. In fact, the few Disney live-action remakes that have basically been shot-for-shot remakes of their animated predecessors were really bad, in my opinion, because they didn't do anything new or novel. And so I prefer when they do things differently. It allows it to be its own film, its own story. But there's just something lacking in some of these live-action movies, and that's, again, unfortunately the case in Yuan. It just doesn't have that emotional weight and pull that I would have hoped for, especially when you have a character like this who, is so inspirational to many people. It just quite didn't get there. Other issue I had with the film is the editing, and part of the problem with it was, again, this goes back to the sort of emotional aspect of the film. There are so many scenes throughout this movie where it should have been really impactful, like really emotional. And they literally cut from it to go to something else. So you, the audience, don't get a chance to sort of absorb those moments that should have some, emotion, those emotional beats. Instead, it goes off to something else. And I feel like that does a disservice to the story, it does a disservice to the film. There's also, again, with the editing, moments of this film that felt left out. Like maybe certain scenes were a little longer and they just cut it abruptly to, I don't know, maybe fit a runtime or maybe to move on to something else. So it comes across as a little choppy with the story. Again, it's like there are scenes where like Mulan will start to do something and then immediately cut to she's already done it. So you don't get to see it. And I felt like it would have been better had you been able to see that. The CGI in this movie is also very noticeable, not in a good way. It's a shame. I mean, reportedly this movie cost $200 million to make. So they probably could have spent a little bit more of that money on the CGI since they used it a lot in this film. And the CGI sort of undercuts the fight scenes and the battle scenes that are actually really great. I mean, again, going back to how visually stunning this movie is, the action sequences and the battle scenes and the fight scenes are just really well choreographed. And I loved watching them. They were just like artistry on screen. It was just beautiful to watch these fight scenes. But then you have the CGI that's added in there that sort of take away from it. It just makes everything look really, really artificial. And that was a shame. No, it's not all bad. There are some bright moments in this film. The acting is really good here. You have Jet Li who plays the Emperor, and the Emperor is actually given a little bit more to do in this movie than the animated film, and Jet Li does a great job. You have Gong Li who plays sort of this sorceress, this witch character, and she does a great job. And actually, that character is new because that character wasn't in the original animated film. And I liked the addition of that character because it provides a nice contrast to Mulan and certain character choices they make with her. Now, some people might not necessarily like that character choice that they make with Mulan. There's something a little different about Mulan in this film than in the previous film. But I think it kind of works given the contrast with, again, the character played by Gong Li, to kind of balance that out. And you'll understand more when you watch it. I'm not going to try to explain it because I don't want to spoil it in case people find it a spoiler. But I think that provides a nice little contrast. I mean, all the actors in this movie are really good. I will say, though, that the lead actress, the actress that plays Mulan, at times in certain scenes, she seems really sort of blank. And I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if it's on purpose. I don't know if she was doing that because of, in most of this movie, she's disguised as a man, and so there's a lot of strength there, and she doesn't really speak that much. Again, she's disguised as a man. So maybe it was a conscious choice. There's a really nice little cameo in the film that, fans of the original film, the animated film, will appreciate. It's a quick cameo, so you have to kind of pay attention to notice it or see it. But it was a nice little nod to the original film, and there are quite a few little nods here and there. They do something different with this film, with the story, but it's clear that the filmmakers were, trying to, put a little few Easter eggs in the film for fans of the original film, and there's plenty of them in there. So look out for those. Overall, I will say again, Mulan is a well-made film. It's visually stunning. It doesn't muster the magic of the original animated film, and I think it falls short in a lot of ways of being a really powerful film because it just doesn't quite get there in many ways. Some people might be wondering, is it worth paying $29.99? Is it worth paying $30 to watch this movie? That is a choice that you have to make for yourself. Some people can't afford that right now. And then some people who can't afford it are probably like, do I want to spend $30 just to watch a movie on a streaming platform. Again, that's something you have to decide for yourself. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Mulan, the new live-action Mulan. Let me know what you think about the movie if you've seen it. Let me know what you think about the movie in the comment section below. While you're here, like this video, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe.